All right, thank you everyone. I appreciate you being here on a cold Tuesday morning after a holiday. Usually any type of get-together in the month of January, everybody's pretty much burned out from the December holiday party season. So I appreciate you all being here this morning. There is no relation with Robbins. I always ask first thing when they say their last name is Robbins, whether it's to be or not to be. So she's a 2B Robbins, so she's met the qualifications to have 2Bs in her last name. And it's pretty surprising, too, that her brother-in-law is named Steve Robbins as well. So I have a twin out there somewhere if you run into him or not. But once again, welcome this morning. I really am very appreciative to be here this morning and spend time with you and talk about leadership. And in the case of managing up, it's really about good followership and how to be a follower. And we have tens of thousands of books on leading and leadership, but not that many books about how to be a good team member and how to be a good follower, because we don't usually generally excel or want to say, hey, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a good follower, right? We don't have that type of thing. And this is really what managing up is all about, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Managing up, depending on your boss. We'll talk about, in general, you have a boss that you can work with, that is open and also wants to work with you and the team members in order to make the organization better for your success, the boss's success, and the success of the organization. Of course, we do have those difficult bosses as well. And we'll kind of touch on that near the end of the program, and especially during the question and answer time. I'll make sure I leave enough time for questions and answers to talk about particular situations that people may be in. When we talk about difficult bosses, there's also levels of difficulty, right? Are they the micromanager type, or are they ghost type and completely hands-off? Are they very impulsive, which leads to kind of a chaotic situation at work? Are they new to the job of being a boss? So those are some of the difficulties and things that you have to manage as a team member on how to manage that particular boss. But when we talk about those kind of extreme bosses, the toxic bosses, that's a whole different discussion whatsoever on how to handle a toxic leader and toxic workplace environment where there may be mental, emotional abuse, as well as maybe sexual harassment or anger issues. Those toxic leaders, those require a whole different level of managing up, and you really have to measure yourself to say, okay, how do I want to approach this? Is it worth it to stay in this organization around such a toxic environment as well? So we'll also touch upon that as well. Thank you very much for the introduction this morning. This is who we are, Student Leader Seminar, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I have business cards and flyers in the back. I really want to get into the meat of the discussion today. The learning methodology that I use during my sessions is think, share, relate, apply. So we're going to think about the concepts that we're going to talk about. We're going to share our own personal experience and our own knowledge of managing up and leadership in general. We're going to relate those experiences to the content that we're going. And then we're going to see, hopefully, how you can take this and apply it back at your workspace after the session. Okay? So managing up. Let's talk about what it is and what it's not. So what is managing up? Okay? Any ideas? Please offer your ideas on what you think managing up is and what it is not. I know it's early. I know it's cold. Yeah, Debbie.
Managing up is making your leader or your boss a better leader. That's your job as a follower.
Okay. Making your boss successful, making your leader a better leader. How can you help your leader to be successful? Because in turn, they're going to make you successful. Any more thoughts? Yes, sir.
I would say self-management is an aspect of managing up. How can I hold myself accountable for things that I know are my responsibility that kind of back to what Debbie said, alleviates my boss and maybe some of that direct management?
Yeah, so a lot of managing up has to do with self-management, how you fit into the scheme of the team, how you fit in with your boss, what you can do to improve your own self in order to improve the organization and the team as a whole. Yeah. right, so when we talk about managing up, it's about making a conscious effort of working with your boss for his success or her success, your success, and the success of the organization. And it's doing it consciously, making that effort to challenge yourself, to manage up, to manage yourself as well. Okay? Now, what it is not, it's not about political maneuvering. I do a session on political savvy, and there is a certain amount of political savviness to working with your boss and managing your boss. That networking opportunity that you want, those connections to other people within the organization that can help you and help your boss in the long run. But it's not political maneuvering. You're not doing it for the specific purpose of maneuvering or manipulating your boss into doing what you want them to do. It's also not kissing up. It's not, a sycophant type attitude where you're just constantly praising your boss and being a yes man or yes ma'am to your boss. Okay? That's not the whole goal of it. It's not about kissing up and doing whatever they say. In fact, and we'll talk about this as well, part of good managing up is speaking that truth to power, right? And being able to say, I'm not sure if this is such a good idea, and here's why. Here's the pros and cons of this idea. And letting your boss know, that this is a good idea or not so good idea or where adjustments need to be made. Okay? So managing up what it is and what it isn't. It's really working with your boss in a conscious way, in a conscious effort, in order for you to do well, your boss to do well, and ultimately the organization to do well. So why do we do it? Why do we do managing up? A couple good quotes here. The first one from John Kotter. Anyone familiar with John Kotter? Okay, John Kotter, really the godfather of leading change, and has several articles out there and books as well, as his own organization on leading change. So if you forge ties with your boss based on mutual respect and understanding, both of you will be more effective. And then F. William Smullen, great book on strategies and ways and means for managing up. He was the chief of staff for Colin Powell when he was Secretary of State. So here's F. William Smullen, here's his chief of staff to General Colin Powell, who's serving as Secretary of State, probably one of the great leaders in our American history, written many leadership books himself. Here's somebody who works for him and his chief of staff writing a book on ways and means to manage up and managing Secretary Powell. So I mean, there's a concept right there of how do you manage somebody who's a great leader already, such as Colin Powell. Managing yourself and those to whom you answer sets a powerful personal example and provides for functional excellence within an organization. At the end of the day, one of the last slides I have is all the references I use for that. I'll throw this up so you can either, take a photo of it or books have been written about that, and I'll have that up there for you. So you don't need to worry about trying to catch all these references. So managing up, why do we do it? Really, it's for our own good, the good of our boss, and the good of the organization. It's a mutual dependency between you and your boss. Okay? You depend on your boss for several things, and your boss depends on you for several things. Your boss depends on you for project management things, task completion, status of that task, updates, any cooperation and teamwork, how you can help bring the team together to meet the goals of the organization and that particular project. He relies on you for reliability, honesty, and truthfulness as far as how the project's going, obstacles that you have, and how that boss can help you overcome those obstacles to the project. And ultimately, they require you for information, and as much information as you can pass so they can make clear, concise decisions. Okay? And ultimately for their own career success. And then we, of course, rely on our boss for our career success. Okay? We rely on them for critical networking opportunities and people within the organization. Who can we connect with that we need to connect with in order to do our job more effectively? We depend on our boss for, beside those networking opportunities, the resources that we need, whether that's administrative resources, logistical resources, talent resources, money resources. We rely on our boss in order for us to be more effective. We rely on our boss for those critical resources for us to do our job successfully. Okay? Setting priorities and expectations. Where do I fall? Where does my project fall within the organization and within my boss's expectations and priorities? The boss will set those priorities and expectations for you. And ultimately, the boss's vision and mission and what they want us to accomplish as a team. And ultimately, our career success. Okay. So before we do any type of managing up, you really need to assess your boss. And you need to look at your boss and what their preferences are, what their preferences and work styles are. Communication. How do they like to be communicated? Are they a reader type or a listener type? Does that mean you're going to send them emails with summaries of your project status, or are you going to go in and brief them or get on the phone and talk to them about it? What is your boss's preference for communication? Work style. Are they more collaborative or are they more independent? Do they enjoy more working as a team and small group discussions and talk about a project and getting status updates? Or are they more of a one-on-one type person? Okay. Are they process-oriented or are they results-oriented? So if they're results-oriented, they're looking for, I don't care how you get to the ultimate goal as long as we reach that goal. Where process-oriented, maybe they're saying, no, these are the process and procedures that we follow, and this is the way that I want it done, each step along the way, milestones along the way. Okay. Time orientation and pace. Are they a morning person? Do you know not to talk to them until after they have their first cup of coffee? Or are they more after lunch or even at the end of the day? That's when they're more approachable and more work-related, that they can get with you and discuss what you need to discuss. That they're more oriented toward the end of the day versus the beginning of the day. Okay? Their pace. Are they very, let's go, let's move, let's do this project and get it done? Or are they more the milestones, setting a slow and steady pace over time? Okay. And then finally, are they task relationship oriented? And are they an introvert or are they an extrovert? Okay. So if they're time versus relationship oriented, do they come in the morning and the first thing they say is, hey, how's that McPherson file coming? Or do they come in and they spend time, hey, how was your night last night? How did your son do in hockey last night? You know, what did you do this weekend? Are they more around the relationship or are they more around the task? Because that's going to tell you what you need to focus on. Hey, they're down to business and I need to give them an update on the task before we get into the personal and relationship side. Okay? Knowing your boss' strengths and weaknesses. Okay? Recognizing your boss's weaknesses and depending on their strengths. Okay? Maybe writing is their weakness. Maybe technical skills are their weakness. Maybe they're not strong in spreadsheets. So you can offer that assistance with, hey, my boss is weak in spreadsheets, let me offer to do the spreadsheets. My boss is weak in technical skills, let me offer to work all the time. But also depending on their strengths. If you know your boss has good connections within a network, using them to get the people in the room that you need to get your job done. Okay. Depending on your boss to get those resources that you need. Okay. Goals, motivations, pet peeves, hot buttons. It's important that you know what the goals and motivations of your boss are, where your project falls in the priority of all the other projects that your boss has to oversee. Where does it fall within the other direct reports, your peers that work for your boss? Okay. What are the goals and motivations that your boss has? Also, the organizational culture and climate. Managing up can be tricky enough working with a boss, but also you need to work within the boundaries of the culture and climate of the organization. So let's have a quick talk about culture versus climate. Culture are those traditions, that historical things that go on within an organization that have gone on for a long time and really mark a brand sort of what that organization is about. We always talk about or hear about or read about culture change. Oh, there needs to be a change in the culture. There needs to be culture change within this organization. Culture is very slow, if at all, to change. In fact, to one organization that I deliver to frequently, we talk about that difference between culture and climate. And that culture, a great quote that this person said, he goes, "The culture in this organization changes one retirement at a time." And if you think about it, it's very true, because most of the culture is embedded within that senior leadership of an organization. And it takes time to change the culture of an organization when newer members are moving up into that executive level C-suite of an organization. Especially in larger organizations, it's even slower to change. Smaller organizations with small number of employees, the culture might be able to change a little quicker, but in general, culture is very slow, if at all, to change. And that's why, as a leader, we have more influence over the climate of our organization. And that's more of what we have within our team, within our smaller subset of the organization that we can have an impact on. I like to think of culture and climate in this way. Culture being the weather outside. Okay? Really can't do anything about the weather outside. It's cold, it's rainy, it's windy. So what are you going to do within your climate of your organization to address that weather situation? And we're going to put on a raincoat, we're going to make sure we have a hat, we're going to take an umbrella with us. That's the climate that you set within your organization and your working. So when you talk about managing up, you need to assess what's the culture of this organization. Is it very rigid, right, where I need to follow certain procedures and certain processes in order to get work done? Or is it a very loose culture where they allow people to come up and work within the boundaries of the organization, but still allow them the freedom and independence to get things done? And then what's the climate of your team and the climate that your boss sets for the organization? Are they approachable or not approachable? Okay? So when you think about not only assessing your boss, you need to assess the culture and the climate of the organization as a whole before you really step into this, how you're going to manage up. Okay. So I want to take a break for a moment and have you partner up with someone at the table, and it can be an odd number, it can be 2s or 3s, or you can turn chairs around. But I want you to pair up with someone near you, and let's create a list or tips or suggestions on how your direct reports can best manage you. How can they help you to be a better boss? What can they do to help you and ultimately the team to be more successful? Okay. Now, Steve, I'm not a leader. I don't have anyone working for me. I'm a direct report. Okay, well, in that case, what do you do? What are tips and suggestions that you have for the group for managing your boss? What are things that you do to help your boss to be more successful and ultimately the team to be more successful? I run leadership seminars where there's people who say, well, I'm not a leader. I don't have anyone that works for me. I'm just me in my group. And they're actually wrong. They are a leader. Okay, they're a leader themselves, they're a leader of their peers, and also they lead up and manage up. So think about how you manage your boss. So any tips or suggestions you have. So we'll spend about 5 minutes, pair up with somebody, share your thoughts and ideas. Debbie's passing out some paper to write on, and then we'll collect these and talk together. So take about 5 minutes and pair up and talk about managing up. All right, I heard a lot of good conversations, so I know we have a lot to capture. I'm going to ask Debbie to scribe for me so we can capture these thoughts on the board here. And please, obviously, you have some paper there to capture some of these as well. We'll go over them, and then we'll go over what the experts say. So Debbie, if you would scribe for me. So who wants to offer up some ways that either how your direct reports can best manage you, or as a direct report, what are some tips or suggestions that you can offer the group for managing your boss? Yes, sir.
Keep me informed. We don't like surprises.
Right. Keep me informed, no surprises. All right? Especially good news soon, bad news even sooner. Right? The bad news doesn't get better with age, so the more information, the better. And that goes back to that communication. How often does your boss like to be communicated? And sometimes we have a boss who's a micromanager. You know, hey, you know, told I'm sort of a micromanager. Okay, I'm very process-oriented micromanager type. Okay, what can you do to help your micromanager not bother you so much, right? Keep them informed. Set up regular meetings with them. So then that alleviates some of their thought process of trying to micromanage you. You're actually alleviating a problem for you by keeping your boss better informed. Great. What else do we have? Yes?
Emotional intelligence awareness. So knowing how to speak with knowing how to speak to who you report to.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence awareness. I like that. Know who you're talking to, and that has to do with knowing your boss, what type of person they are. Okay, now we're all not going to be able to get the Myers-Briggs on our boss, right, to know what type of emotional intelligence or what type of leader they are, but you can be aware, talking to your peers about who've worked with the boss before, what type of boss are they, okay, on the emotional intelligence range, and what can you do to best approach your boss knowing what their emotional intelligence level is, okay? What else do we have? Yes?
So when there's an issue that comes up, like bring recommendations or solutions. Like don't expect me to solve every issue. Come with a plan, come with recommendations so we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of people often bring up problems. If you're going to bring problems, bring solutions, right? Help me to come to a decision. Bringing a problem or an obstacle that you have with several solutions offers the boss several ways to solve it. Whether they go with one of your solutions or not, maybe they do, maybe they don't, knowing what they know and the decision that they have to make. But bringing solutions when you bring a problem is always helpful. Yes, sir.
I would say to accompany that, don't shy away from it just because you don't have a solution. Because if it's a problem that we need to tackle together, don't hold back that communication from you.
Right.
So don't be afraid to communicate, even in the absence of a recommended solution. So some tiers, I think, depending on the leader, maybe like.
Sure. Depending on the leader, depending on the situation, depending on the problem, maybe this is a bigger problem than I have a solution for. And that's what bosses should be there for. They should be there to help you either get over, through, or around obstacles. Okay? So sometimes you might not have the solution. Knowing that you don't wait, don't hold off on passing that information. If you don't have a solution to offer, bring it up as soon as possible. Sure. What else? Yes?
Talked about accountability and trust
Okay.
being really important in building that relationship.
Okay, so accountability and trust, right? Be honest, be trustworthy, be loyal. And not loyal to a fault, right? Where you'll do anything or say anything for the boss within the ethical, as I got introduced, mine is around ethical decision-making, ethical leadership. So don't cross those boundaries when it comes. But for your boss to trust you, you have to show that trust and that you can be honest and trustworthy, okay? So be trustworthy and be that person that the boss can come to. Yes, sir?
I think you touched on this before, but being compliment your boss, like in some areas that you probably are stronger in or something.
Yeah.
Compliment.
Yeah. Everyone likes to be appreciated, right? So complimenting your boss, thanking your boss when they do solve problems for you, where they do help you overcome obstacles, where they do get you the resources, whether it be talent, money, financial, thank them. Be appreciative for their effort, right? Compliment them on the things that they do well in order to help make your job easier. Yes?
Knowing the mission, knowing the end state, because when everybody knows what we're trying to achieve, that helps kind of, as we navigate through the ambiguity and the certainly.
Yeah. Know the mission, know the goals, know your boss's vision. What's the ultimate goal that your boss wants to achieve, that the organization wants to achieve? Because maybe the first one or two paths isn't the path to meet that vision. And maybe along the way you find another path to get there that's more successful, more effective, and more efficient. But knowing the goals, knowing the mission, knowing your boss's vision on what the ultimate goal is vital. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Let them know that they're dedicated. I mean, whatever's going to take to get something done, I'll be there. If I got to stay late, I'll stay late. And if I've got to learn something new, I'll learn something new. Communicating that you're dedicated to whatever your mission is, I think is very appreciative of most leaders.
Yeah. So as a boss, letting your people know that you're dedicated to this project or this mission or this goal, and that you'll do whatever it takes as a boss to accomplish that. If it means you got to work late or the team has to work late, you're willing to do that. If it means that your boss has to go to their boss about some resources or some backing or support or networking opportunity that they need, that you're willing to do that as a boss for your directs, letting them know that. Great. Right. What else do we have? Yes, sir.
I would say team players, like if you have multiple people, they can't be arguing back and forth because then now you've got to step in and try to figure it out. But if they're good team players, they may not always agree with one another, but they find a solution. I guess it may fall under some of these, but they can talk together, find a solution, and ultimately get it done.
Yeah. And
Not a bunch of eyes, but a bunch of weeds.
yeah, working as a team and teamwork. Now, there's the thing, is conflict management. That's another topic that is big in leadership, conflict management. And note it's the word management. It's not conflict elimination. Okay? It's conflict management for a reason. Healthy, good conflict within a team is good. It breeds creativity and innovation and new ideas and new ways to do things. So healthy conflict is good for an organization. Okay? But also on the flip side, having the respect among the team members to have that healthy conflict. Okay? Shouldn't be in an environment where people don't feel safe to bring up new ideas or don't feel safe about creative new ways of doing things. There needs to be that healthy, safe environment where that can be brought up, even if there is a conflict. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to help the organization and help the team. Right? Any more? Yes?
If you understand how your boss would resolve a situation, you're in a position to either solve the problem or come up with a different solution, but know how you need to report back and what you did to get to where you are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Know your boss. What is their decisions like in the past? How do they go about resolving issues? What are their preferences? Knowing that and knowing how your boss, you can start thinking like your boss and say, okay, I have this idea, I'm working on this. What would my boss say to this? Sort of playing devil's advocate, only boss's advocate, right? What would my boss say to this? How do I want to accomplish this? If I bring this to him, what are the things that he or she needs in order to make a decision? Okay, what do they base their decision making on?
You get their response without them even being there.
Yeah, you can already walk it through without them even being there. So then when you do present it, all the checks are in the box and it's all done. Right? Okay. All right, I think this is a pretty good list of ways to manage up as bosses or as direct reports on things that we can do to manage up or be managed. So the question we need to ask yourself after looking at this list, if you're a boss, do your team members know these things? Your preferences, your communication style, your emotional intelligence. Do they know that, hey, if you got a problem, bring solutions along with it? Okay? And if you're a direct report, do you do these with your boss? Okay. Do you do these with your boss? Do you help alleviate problems for your boss? Do you keep your boss informed? Okay. Right, so we've sort of created a list here of what our general thoughts are. Now, let's see what the experts think. Let's go over some ideas through the research of what authors on managing up have to say about ways to manage up. Okay? Don't assume, communicate. Don't assume that your boss knows what it is that you know. A lot of times we say, hey, that's not my job. That's the boss. The boss should know that. Don't assume that the boss knows that. Okay? It's always better to over-communicate than under-communicate. Okay? We already mentioned about every problem needs a solution. Be honest with your boss. We talked about accountability and trust. Okay? Speaking truth to power. Respectfully, of course. But letting the boss know, hey, here's a situation, I don't think this is a good idea. Or this goes against what the normal procedures and processes are within the organization. Maybe we need to bring it within line of the organization. Okay? Be aware of your boss's hot buttons. What are their pet peeves? What are their hot buttons? Maybe it's grammar, right, in a particular note, or maybe it's a memorandum, or maybe it's something like that where they're a stickler about commas or semicolons or whatever it is. Or maybe they like this particular font over that style of font. Know what it is that your boss's pet peeves are. Okay? How do they like to be approached? Once again, are they morning person? Are they afternoon person? Are they a hit me up after I get my first cup of coffee? Okay. Anticipate what the boss wants or needs. We brought that up as well. Okay? Know your boss's preferences. Okay? How they think, what their decision process is like, because that's going to make it easier for you to approach your boss if you already know what they're like and what their preferences are. No more than is expected. Keep the team informed of requirements and decisions. So you come out of a meeting with your boss, inform the team of what decisions were made. Don't rely on your boss to pass that information to the rest of the team. It may not be passed till the next team meeting. So go ahead and keep the rest of the team informed. Never allow the boss to be surprised. We talked about that. Keeping them informed. No surprises. Resolve conflict for the boss. Okay? Your boss is busy. Your boss has a boss. Okay? So anytime you can resolve conflict for the boss is a way that helps them. Now you become kind of that go-to person that that boss is looking for. Respect your boss's time. Okay? And this is one that, guilty as charged with respecting your boss's time. I had a great boss at McGraw-Hill. He was the director of the workforce operations. I was the manager of workforce operations and training. Our offices were right next door to each other. So a lot of times when I had something, I would just walk in. He had a quote-unquote open door policy, right? And he was great. When I walked in, he turned away from the computer, put his phone down, paid complete attention to what I had. But after a while, I got to almost where I abused that closeness. Okay? You have work to do. They have work to do. We're constantly in meetings or getting on phone calls or pop-up meetings, whether they're scheduled or not. Respecting your boss's time. And as I studied and did more professional development around leadership, it came to me that, I spend a lot of time in there, and sometimes it's just chit-chatting after a particular issue. Okay? So I scaled that back. If something could do by an email, I just sent it to an email instead of walking around into the office. I used our time, our weekly time where we had one-on-one to capture all these things instead of wandering over and doing these quick 10 or 15-minute hits. Okay? And he noticed. He said, hey, I noticed you're not coming in my office so much. Is everything okay? What's going on? And I was like, no, everything's fine. I just thought, you've got a lot to do. I've got a lot to do. I want to make sure that if I'm going to interrupt you in your day, that I do it wisely. And he appreciated that, because he would never come out and say, hey, I'm right in the middle of something. Go away, come back later, right? He's a great boss, so he wouldn't do that. But respect your boss's time. Aligning your priorities with the boss. Okay? Make sure that you're in alignment, and that goes back to knowing the goals, knowing the vision, knowing the mission. So then you can align with what their priorities are. Okay? Make your boss's life easier. Stay on their radar. And goes down to that bottom one too about making your boss look good. And I know that you think, hey, that's the boss. I shouldn't have to worry about them looking good. But anytime that you can make your boss look good, makes the team look good as a whole. Okay? If you can give them that one vital piece of information before they walk into a meeting, you can become that kind of go-to person, that person with knowledge and information. The boss appreciates that, makes them look good in front of their boss. Okay. Take feedback well. Okay? There's a thing about not only giving feedback, but receiving feedback. Getting clarification on what that feedback was. Okay? Try to look into what is it really that I need to work on as a professional in order to improve. Don't complain, request. Behind every complaint is a request. Find that request and offer the request instead of just complaining. Okay? And that's hard. It's easy to sit around and complain about boss does this, the boss does that. Okay? But really, what's the request that you're making? I would prefer that the boss did this way. I would prefer that this happen. Okay. Make that request. Get to the bottom of the complaint in general and find out what it is that you're asking for. We already talked about showing appreciation for your boss. Okay. Everybody likes to be appreciated. Everybody likes to hear a thank you every now and then and a job well done, your boss included. Okay. Under promise and over deliver, age-old quote, but it is age-old because it works. Okay. Get things before it's due. Okay. Do it well, and then more and more responsibility will come, and the work will come as well. Know what matters, which kind of ties back to knowing what your boss's priorities are, and then make your boss look good. Okay. The ultimate goal of managing up is for your boss to be successful, you to be successful, and ultimately the team and the organization to be successful. So I think we've got enough time for questions. Yeah, so we got 10 minutes, and I know we just did a kind of quick wrap up around managing up, and we talked about a boss that we can work with. These are the references I used. I'm going to leave that up while we take some questions or talk about particular difficult bosses or situations that you might have had come up with managing your boss or as a boss, how you were managed. Questions, concerns, issues? Yeah.
So is what you do what you did this morning? Is that your job?
As far as this type of thing, yeah. Pretty much I run seminars depending on, whether they're like this one, this is a lunch and learn, but at breakfast time, right? Or I do hour sessions, half-day sessions, full-day sessions. I run a 4-week program for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, their Leadership Institute. It's for all their government service 15s and senior executive services. And I bring team members together to talk about the topics that they want to discuss or that they think they need to work their leadership on. Everything from, building trust, managing conflict, how to be a good, courageous followership is a session. I do a session on political savvy. I do one on ethical decision making. A lot of times decisions that we face every day as leaders aren't the right, wrong decisions. That has to do with your code of ethics training and all that. Pretty much we know what's right and what's wrong. It's those right versus right decisions that people struggle with every day. You have a normally great employee who has a transgression. Do you hammer that individual for a first-time offense, or do you let him off because of past behavior? And then how does that create for the rest of the team? Oh, hey, last time so-and-so was 20 minutes late, you let him off. How come you're not letting me off, right? So it's a tough right versus right kind of decision. So, yeah, but this is what I do. All depends on what the needs of the organization are. Yes, sir.
Steve, thanks. Can you give us a couple of examples how managing up worked well and then where it did not?
Okay. Well, it really depends on the type of boss you have. If bosses, are open to And like I said, it's not manipulation, right? But it's about managing your boss so that they can be more successful and you and the team can be more successful. Where it runs into struggle is if you have a difficult boss, that type of toxic leader that really is unapproachable, really doesn't want your assistance, very narcissistic and ego, and you almost have to play to that narcissism in a way, and kind of stroke their ego a little bit when it comes, that your idea, knowing that your idea may become their idea at the end of the day. So, most of the time, the managing up, good examples happen all the time. Because most of the time you're managing up your boss or you're being managed up by your people, and it just works like a smooth running machine. And the times it doesn't work are where your boss feels like they know more than you, they're a boss for a reason, and holding it down where it's difficult to manage up. We talked about the micromanager, so what you can do for a micromanager type boss. Hold regular meetings. You get assigned a project by your boss, who's a micromanager, say, okay, what do you want? Do you want weekly meetings? Do you want daily updates? Do you want, at the end of the day, just let you know how things went? No, I'd like weekly. Great, we'll set up Fridays at 10. We're going to have a weekly meeting. I'll give you updates and status on the project. And then also offer those time ones where your meeting's on Friday, but you find out on Tuesday that you didn't get the resourcing from finance to do your project. That's something your boss needs to know right away. Don't wait till Friday to do it. So say, hey, I have an update to the project. Do you have 5 minutes so I can come in and talk about it? Okay, so working with that, knowing your boss is a micromanager, over-communicate, over-inform, and regular updates. You may have a boss, and this is the thing about becoming a boss. Most people become leaders or become bosses because they're good at what they do, right? You're an awesome accountant. I'm going to put you in charge of all the accountants. Okay, well, I was good at being an accountant, but now I don't know anything about being in charge of 15 other accountants. I know what I did to be good at what I do, but I don't know how to do this. So most of the time, leaders are put in positions as leaders because they're good at what they do. They're good at their job. And most of the time, they don't get any training or education as a leader until they've already been in the position of a leader for a while. So they're kind of learning while they go as well. You may end up with a boss that has no experience being a boss. Help them to be better. Sort of that reverse mentoring, I call it, right? Where you can help mentor your boss to be a better boss. Maybe from your experience as a leader or your experience with running a group. Okay? So, yes, sir.
This is not a question,
Sure.
it's a comment. But I want to say that I've heard of this notion of managing up, but I was thinking the opposite. I had really never taken time to read into it. So I was thinking, how do you manage your direct reports to maybe feel that they're part of the project, to empower them? So I'm glad I came. I had a different notion of what managing up is.
Yeah, you thought of it as a direct report, how am I managing my people, and that's why there's tens of thousands of books on leadership, and most of them about leading your teams and leading down. And this is kind of the opposite, and there's not a lot out there on how to lead up, and how to manage up. So yeah, it both ways. It's that a good relationship between people is really working up and down, and like I said, as an individual, you may feel like you don't have any direct reports, so you're not a leader, but leading yourself, leading your peers, and managing up can be key to your success as well as the success of the team. So. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you again for your time today. Hopefully, you're taking away something good.